You know what's strange? In a world that never really stops talking, you feel most like yourself when everything goes quiet. Not bored, not lonely, just relieved. You probably noticed that after a long day of noise. Conversations, notifications, traffic, background music you didn't choose, the first moment of silence feels like taking off a tight pair of shoes. Your shoulders drop. Your breathing shifts. Something inside you unclenches. This is for the people who don't just enjoy silence. You depend on it. The ones who choose the quieter cafe table, who turn the music off halfway through the drive, who sometimes sit in a room doing absolutely nothing, and feel completely okay about it. On the surface, it might seem like you're just introverted, or maybe a little antisocial. You might even joke that you just don't like people very much, but that's rarely the full story. Because your love of silence isn't just about personality preference, it's about regulation. And this is where it becomes a little more interesting. For you, silence isn't empty, it's restorative. Psychologists sometimes talk about something called sensory processing sensitivity, a trait where the nervous system simply takes in more information, more deeply. Not in a dramatic way, just thoroughly. Your brain doesn't skim the environment, it absorbs it. So when there's constant stimulation, voices, opinions, screens, social cues, your system doesn't filter it out easily. It processes, and processes, and processes. That can be beautiful. You notice subtle shifts in tone. You pick up on tension in a room before anyone names it. You sense meaning between words. But it's also exhausting. Silence, for you, is not avoidance. It's recovery. You probably notice that you think more clearly in quiet, that your emotions settle, that decisions feel less reactive. It's not that you can't function in noise. You can. It just costs you more energy than it seems to cost other people. And here's what people rarely admit. We live in an era of relentless stimulation. Notifications are engineered to pull attention. Social platforms reward constant expression. Work cultures often equate loud participation with competence. Even relaxation now comes with background content. Environment shapes wiring. When you grow up, or simply live long enough. In a culture that rarely pauses, your nervous system adapts. Some people adapt by matching the noise. Others adapt by seeking refuge from it. You adapted by valuing quiet. Not because you're fragile, but because your system learned that quiet equals safety. When stimulation decreases, your stress response decreases. Cortisol settles. Your thinking shifts from reactive to reflective. Silence becomes associated with clarity, with control. It makes sense. But here's where it becomes complicated. If silence is the only place you feel fully regulated, you might start needing it in a way that narrows your world. This might be uncomfortable. You might decline invitations not because you don't care, but because you're calculating the sensory cost. You might withdraw mid-conversation, not physically, but internally. You might feel misunderstood when others interpret your quiet as distance, and sometimes you don't correct them. Not because you can't, but because explaining feels louder than staying silent. You know the feeling. This is the part that stings a little. When a strength quietly starts building walls. But loving silence is not the same as fearing connection. Solitude and isolation get confused all the time. Here's a simple rule of thumb. Solitude feels like choice. Isolation feels like resignation. In solitude, you step away and return replenished. In isolation, you step away and return smaller. Picture this. You spend an evening alone, reading, no notifications. The silence feels warm. That's solitude. Now picture declining every invitation for months, telling yourself you're just tired, while secretly wondering if people will stop asking. That's when silence shifts shape. The difference isn't the absence of noise, it's the presence of agency. And most of the time, you do have agency. There's actually another concept that explains part of this. Something called cognitive load. Your brain has limited bandwidth. The more stimuli you process, the less space you have for reflection. When the load exceeds capacity, irritability, and mental fatigue creep in. Silence reduces cognitive load. It's like closing unused tabs in a browser. In fact, your mind in constant noise can feel like having 37 tabs open, and you don't even remember which one started playing music. Silence is you clicking close all. Relief isn't weakness, it's regulation. But there's nuance here. Sometimes silence becomes a shield. If you grew up in environments where speaking up led to conflict, or where your emotional needs weren't fully met, quiet may have been adaptive. Listening kept you safe. Observing gave you information. Staying small prevented escalation. Your brain learned quieter equals safer. That adaptation can carry forward long after the original environment is gone. And this doesn't mean you're broken. It means you adapted intelligently. That's human. The people who love silence often carry a deep internal world. You probably replay conversations afterward. You think before you respond. You may even feel overstimulated by small talk, but energized by depth. You tend to prefer one meaningful conversation over 5 casual ones. You'd rather walk in nature than attend a loud event. You sometimes turn down the radio just to think. And here's something quietly powerful about that. You are comfortable being alone with your own mind. Many people aren't. Silence forces confrontation with thoughts most people drown out. When you sit in quiet and don't immediately reach for distraction, you're tolerating your own inner landscape. That's not emptiness. That's capacity. Of course, like any adaptation, it becomes limiting when it turns rigid. When silence is the only state you allow yourself. When discomfort with noise becomes discomfort with unpredictability. When protection quietly becomes avoidance. But you're not extreme. You're nuanced. The fact that you're even reflecting on this says something. You don't love silence because you lack something. You love it because it gives something back. Clarity, regulation, space. In a culture that rewards constant output, you value pause. In a world that equates loudness with confidence, you find strength in restraint. You're not behind. You're not disengaged. You're calibrated differently. Silence, for you, is not absence. It's alignment, and maybe that's why it feels like relief. Because when everything else quiets down, you can finally hear yourself. I'd be curious how this shows up in your life. Whether silence feels like restoration for you too. If you're interested in more reflections like this, same depth, different patterns, there are more videos waiting for you here. Until next time.